I have been blogging about money for around 7 years now. I write about everything from money saving apps to side hustles to a whole host of money related things. But my parents received some bad financial advice when I was a child, so I watched them sort of living paycheck to paycheck, and sort of sat there thinking, I don't want that same thing in my life. I never ever imagined that it would turn into what it has turned into now, with people from all over the world searching on it. It sort of earns more than my full-time income. Absolutely crazy, because the whole point of the blog was the money saving and money. A bit of a crazy story, really. But I definitely didn't start it with the idea of making money from it. I started it as a information sharing thing, and then with my sort of entrepreneurial spirit, I've managed to turn it into an extra side hustle, an extra source of income as well. I try to use my money for peace. So if I know the hard working, which some people would be like, but they ended up in debt, and I will push back.
Side hustles at the moment, say your top 3 side hustles.
So top 3. So for me, number 1 has got.
Today we've got Emma Jackson, the brilliant mind behind Be Money Savvy, a platform for me is like the go-to place when you want to just get tips and learn how to make extra money, right? And today we'll be diving into Emma's story. We'll be talking about how to make money, looking at her story, how she had made money in the past and how she's still making money, and what we can learn from that. Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on The Wealthy Post. We are really, really delighted to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me on. Do you want me to do a bit of an introduction about myself?
Yeah, I think that's usually the best place to start, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, my name's Emma, and I run a website called bemoneysavvy.com. I have been blogging about money for around 7 years now. I write about everything from money saving apps to side hustles to a whole host of money related things, but often from my own perspective. So things that I've been doing. And my motivation behind starting the blog was that my parents received some bad financial advice when I was a child. So I watched them sort of living paycheck to paycheck, and it sort of had an impression on me as a young kid. I was sort of sat there thinking, I don't want that same thing in my life, and I certainly don't want that when I've got kids and they can see that. So throughout my sort of teens, early 20s, I was always very money savvy, lots of part-time jobs. I would search for discounts. My parents would say, oh, we need to buy a new bed, and I would find them the best discount. And I was always searching the internet for money saving tips and always getting free stuff as well. So when I left university, I got my first full-time job, and they offered me it as a part-time job, which at the time I didn't really want that. I wanted a full-time job. I've just finished university, and I'm also super money savvy. So I was also like, I really wanted a full-time income. But through my money savvy ways, I realized that actually I could live off that part-time income, and actually saved enough money to buy my first home. So my friends and colleagues would always say, how are you doing that? How are you saving money when you're earning less than us? Which is actually where the idea for the blog started. Awesome. So I was out for a walk with my dad, and reflecting on my money and my budget for the month, and sharing how all my friends have got no money because we're getting close to payday. And my dad said, well, why don't you share your tips? You could write them up and share them with your friends. So that's how it all started. Very, very small, originally just sharing with a really close circle of friends and just the things that I was signing up to, the apps that I was using, the side hustles. So that's how it started. I never ever imagined that it would turn into what it has turned into now, with people from all over the world searching on it. It really was just for my close circle of friends, and eventually more people found it, and it started attracting a wider audience, and now it sort of earns more than my full-time income in a job, which is absolutely crazy, because the whole point of the blog was the money saving and money making. So a bit of a crazy story, really. So I definitely didn't start it with the idea of making money from it. I started it as a information sharing thing, and then with my sort of entrepreneurial spirit, I've managed to turn it into an extra side hustle, an extra source of income as well.
Yeah, that's honestly, that's a very inspiring story, right? And I would say that it doesn't hurt to the fact that it's there making money, right? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people find stressful, if I'll put it that way. You start doing something that you kind of love, but you do it for so long without making money. What do you think you did differently? Was it the case of the money finding you?
So I get a lot of people asking me about how to make money from a blog. And I don't mind people asking me that question, but I think I get it every day. But I think that truthfully, because I went into it not really knowing that you could make money from it, I went into it with such enjoyment and such passion for it. And so I think that was the difference really, because a lot of these people are messaging me with the intention of earning money from something they haven't even created yet. Whereas I had created something and then had a look around and was like, I actually think I could start to create income from this. So I think it was that starting with something you really care about, something you're really passionate about, setting it up, letting it sort of freestyle for a little bit, and then having a look at the income opportunities and slowly doing that. So I think I probably gained trust based on the fact that I wasn't trying to sell anything. So my audience was expanding because they could see that I wasn't just trying to churn out affiliate links, and I was just sharing useful information straight off the bat.
Another question I would like to ask is, initially when you're talking about your story, and we'll come back to the side hustle questions, right? Initially when you're talking about your story, you talk about the fact that you bought a house at a very young age. I'm trying to picture the world to today, or the UK today, right? A lot of people talk to me, and one of the things that they talk about is getting on the property ladder. And you look at their finances, they are not doing so badly. They are earning good sum. And maybe they are living in a place that is a little bit higher cost than, I don't know where you stay, but I live in Cornwall. And when I talk to friends in maybe London, we compare our rent or mortgage, or it's like they're paying 2 plus what I'm paying over here. And it will be a lot easier for me to save a lot more. But for you, how was that journey like, buying your first property?
Yeah, so I had some sort of positives and some negatives when I bought my first property. So what really works in my favour is I live in Yorkshire, so well far out of London, so the property prices are much better.
Is that where the accent is from?
Yes, that is the accent. I'm told it's a very strong accent. But yeah, Sheffield, Leeds, Bradford, that tends to have been my area for the past, well, since I was born, I've always lived in one of those. And the property prices are much cheaper, much more affordable in Yorkshire. So that was a major positive on my behalf. And then I am very, very lucky to have a brilliant family who have let me on and off stay with them during different parts of my life. I mean, they've not let me live rent free many times, but they've let me live cheaper than I would have got rent anywhere else. And that's been a major positive on my side as well. So every time, so I bought my first property when I was 25, and just before that I moved back home with my mum and dad. And then I'm currently in the process of buying another place, and I've moved back in with mum and dad again.
Awesome.
Just to save up a little bit extra.
That's good.
I know, yeah. But that is a major positive. And I mean, it doesn't just have to be family, it could be friends as well. If you can, anywhere you can stay on the cheap just to get yourself saving up a deposit, reducing your costs. And while you look for somewhere affordable that's within your budget, I think that is a major positive. And I think it often gets sort of talked down a lot. A lot of people see it as, well, you've got no independence. Well, actually, I'm saving up to be more independent very shortly. So I think everyone's situation is different. Some positives, some negatives. At the time of me buying my first house, I was working part-time, which is not great for a mortgage. Generally, your mortgage providers are looking at sort of 4 times your income, 4.5 times your income. But I was on a very low income working part-time, so my sort of what they would offer me in terms of a mortgage was quite low. So that was a major disadvantage working part-time. On the flip side of that, because of my sort of money savvy ways, I'd managed to save quite a good deposit. So that's the other flip side of that, is that if you are on a lower income, while it's very difficult to save up towards a deposit, that's the sort of thing that's going to help you get on the property ladder, because your mortgage that they're going to give you is going to be a lot less. And then I made a lot of compromises as well when I bought my first property. So I wanted somewhere near to my mum and dad, and there was just nowhere that was in my budget. So I moved further afield, and then I wanted like a 2-bedroom apartment And that was also a bit of a stretch for my budget, so I ended up with a 1 bedroom apartment. That's it, yeah. But there were compromises made at the time, and I think I offered sort of 5,000 less than they originally put it on for. So just little things. So like being able to move back in with parents helped me towards my deposit. It also meant when you have those initial calls with your mortgage provider around affordability, because my living costs were so much
Yeah.
lower, they sort of trusted me to make those mortgage payments. So it's all positive. But yeah, them compromising on location and size also worked in my favour. But generally, I really hammered home saving towards a deposit. The minute I got my first job, like while I was still at
Yeah.
university, I was putting money
Wow.
aside towards my deposit.
Wow.
So from 18, I'd been saving
18.
into
Wow.
my
And a lot of
yeah,
people would see I got my first property at 25 and not realize that you've actually been saving for 7 years, like from 18.
yeah,
That's massive.
definitely.
Yeah. Well done. Right. So what's your take on rent versus buy?
I can see positives on both sides, and I think it's largely dependent on your lifestyle. I think that I have always been in the buy
Mm,
side of things, just because I know I want to live here. So I know that I want to live in this area. I want a job in this area. I want to be close to my family. So it makes sense for me to buy in this area. But if I was someone who was looking to move overseas, I was looking for jobs that in a wider radius, I would be less on the buy side because I wouldn't be as committed to the
true.
area. But for me, it just makes sense on that level because one, it's owning something. Yeah, it's not liquid cash. It's not something that I can just take the equity out of instant, but it is somewhere that brings me
Mm,
peace. And wherever possible, I try to use my money for peace. So if I know that my landlord's not going to put the rent up, if something breaks, I'm going to fix it that
yeah.
day and I'm not going to have to wait for the landlord to fix it. And I'm in an area that I like, I'm close to my family. All those sort of things are within my control. That brings me peace. And that's what I want to use my money for, is to have that peace and to have a place that I can call my own, that I can decorate how I want and know that I own that place.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's very valid, right? One thing about personal finance is that it's very personal, right? So yeah, I think you have a massive point there. I want to circle back on something you said when you were doing your intro. And while you were talking, the thoughts just came to my mind, and I didn't know what role that played to who Emma is at the moment. And that has to do with your family, because I know you mentioned your dad, he encouraged you to start the website, but I think you also mentioned the fact that you didn't come from money or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I did say that. I said my parents were often living
Yeah.
paycheck to paycheck. They were in debt for a lot of my childhood. And it's one of those things, and sometimes I feel really guilty talking about it
Mm,
because it wasn't their
mm,
fault. They had gone into a bank and the bank had said, right, this is great for your situation.
mm,
Take out this product and you'll have all the money and you'll have paid off your mortgage and you'll have done this. And it didn't work out that way. It was the endowment
mm.
situation. Uh, so it completely backfired. They were actually given a little bit of compensation, but it didn't cover
You're
the
dead.
debt that they'd ended up with. So yeah, it really did shape my view of money. And I sort of see their hardship as teaching me a lot of lessons. So they they my parents are really hardworking, which some people would be like, but they ended up in debt, and I will push back and said that really wasn't, it was a sort of a situational
Yeah.
thing. But they are incredibly hardworking. So they gave me that. They taught me that if you are in debt or you're struggling, to just keep chipping away
Yeah.
at it. I watched my mum have like a full budget spreadsheet as a kid. I watched my dad go to work on a weekend and do like extra
Mm,
shifts and pick extra work. I've seen them both like choosing not to have things that other people would have and sacrificing things to make sure that me and my brother were well cared for. So I've seen them give up a lot, sacrifice a lot, but also put in the hard work, which has been invaluable. And still to this day, my parents aren't in debt anymore, but they don't have a great financial
mm.
position. And I think that I've almost taken the skills that they've given me and utilized
Yeah.
them away. And so even though my income's much more than my parents now, I also still do all the little money saving things that they will do because they need
Yeah.
to. I do that because it's almost a habit at this point.
Yeah.
So I'll go to the shop and use a cashback app, or I'll search for a discount online as I'm buying something. So all those little habits they've taught me, and I probably don't need to do it as much as they do, but I still do it out of habit. So I'm really grateful for all those habits, and ultimately that's what caused me to create the
Yeah.
blog, because I'd learned all
Yeah.
these things from them. So it's almost their skills that has
Exactly.
led me into a position. Yeah, I'm going to be eternally grateful to them for many reasons, but that is
Yeah.
another one. So yeah, it really did shape my view of money, just because I admired their sort of hard-working streak and seeing all those little money-saving habits as well. And that's something that now I have and embody.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. Looking at your experience, where you're coming from, and then flipping that to make your life a lot better. Yeah, a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people go through experiences like that, and it damages them and how they handle money going forward. So I think that's a very good thing. Is it the same with your brother?
So I've got a bit of a mixed answer though. So he's a lot like me in that he has sort of taken the skills that my mum and dad have and then taken it one step further. So he's a real hustler. He works every weekend that he can. He always has money available. He's got a higher income. In fact, we're sort of competing at the moment for who's got the higher income. And he's savvy with things as well. Like he builds things rather than buying things and that kind of thing. But then the way that we differ slightly is that he is a bit more frivolous with his money. I sort of saw the sacrifice of my parents. He saw the savviness, but I also have the sacrifice. So I will delay gratification all the time. I will think about what future me wants rather than what me today was. I'll go without today so that tomorrow I can have something more, that kind of thing. My brother is less like that. So he will, if he wants something today, he's going to get it today. And he's more likely to just, to spend a lot more money all at once than I would be. I tend to take my time spending my money. But yeah, that's the main difference. But generally, he's got the same sort of work ethic and savviness.
So let's say you want to rank your side hustles at the moment. Say your top 3 side hustles.
So top 3. So for me, number 1 has got to be my blog. Anyone can start a blog. Anyone can do it. And I don't particularly have any IT skills. I mean, I can get around a computer and a phone, but I don't have any sort of coding background or web development skills. So I really believe that anybody can do it. Follow a tutorial online. So that is my number 1, and it's also my biggest income generator. Number 2, I would say, is like freelance work. Again, anybody can do it, and I'm saying it as a general thing because you can sort of freelance in anything. For me, that's been like freelance writing. So and that sort of came from the blogging. But you could freelance in anything: proofreading, tutoring. There's just a whole host of things you could freelance in. And number 3, I think, for very different reasons, is sort of like temp event work.
Oh, okay.
So again, anybody can do it.
What does that look like? Can you give me an example?
Yeah, so a couple of summers ago, I don't even know where I originally saw the advert, but it was to work a one-day event in my local town, and you were essentially sort of like a promo staff.
Oh, okay.
And so anyone can do it. You just got to have the skills to talk to people. Generally, that's your only requirement, but there are always jobs in that area. So I went and worked an event and ended up being the manager at the next event that was really similar to it. So it's also super easy to progress in that kind of work, because often people will just come in for the day and then leave it there. So if you go in for the day, enjoy it, and you're quite good at it, it's really easy to end up being a manager of the event, which then you're doubling your income for just a one-off day. There's always summer work. I've worked so many different summer jobs. I had been to Camp America and worked in summer schools and all sorts of things. So I've done loads of summer work. So often you can get that. Events, weekends, that kind of stuff. I know someone that they do like the Segway scooters, and they go to different places and run that event so kids can have a go on it. I know someone that does jet ski events. There's all sorts of seasonal work out there. So that's definitely my number three, even though it's much
Yeah.
broader to like online on a computer.
I think I love that third one. So let's talk about blogging. If you're going to start a blog today, be money savvy, right? What would you do differently in terms of to make money?
If I was to say, oh, it would be very interesting. I think I would have a serious think about actually starting a blog. And the world is just so different now, like the online world. I'll be thinking about video content
Oh,
rather than written content, I think would be the way that I would position myself. So I would think about TikTok, Instagram,
mm,
YouTube. I'll be thinking about how I could monetize those. So if I did decide to create a blog, I would make sure that it is filled with video content,
oh,
that it links to YouTube, and each blog post has a YouTube video attached to it.
mm,
I think that would be the way I would approach it. So I just think video content is I mean, you can monetize that
yeah,
alone, but then if you could combine a blog with that, you could almost double the
yeah.
income.
I think the next thing I want to ask is with regards to budgeting. So that's when we were talking earlier, that was why I said that you're very brave sharing your life on, and it has to do with your budget. Like I think it's every month you share your income. But I also love the expense part, right? Where you talk about what you're spending on and all of that. What's your approach to budgeting? Because I know we see the finished work, right? We see what you spent the last month. But the way I see budgeting is, even though people don't like the word, but budgeting is actually a plan. You're planning for the next month. You're not looking into the past. You're not looking at last month. How do you approach that? What are your tips? Just talk about how you approach budget.
It's interesting because I absolutely agree with you. It's essential. It's not looking
Yeah,
backwards. It's planning forwards. However, when I first created my first ever budget, I started by looking backwards and seeing what I'd spent the
yeah,
previous month, what that looked like in categories. So how much was I spending on food? How much was I spending on bills? And compared that to what was coming in. And then that was the basis for next
yeah,
month because I'd never got anything to
yeah,
start with before. So that was an initially, so each month I sort of made it a little bit better each month as I went. So that first one was just, right, what does a current month look like? And then the next month after that, now that I've got like a bit of a basis of how much I spend on everything, the next month after that was, how can I make this 5% better? So how can I move the 5% from takeaways into my
mm,
savings? So each month I just did like a 5% better. What could I change this month? That could be, instead of eating my dinner at work or buying my dinner at work, I was cooking it at home and taking it in. So each month it would just be one small change. And then I mean, at this point, it's over like 7 years of perfecting things. But at this point now, my budget is so tight with what I put in different things. And it had got really tight to the point where I was probably becoming a bit obsessive with it. When I got a recent pay rise, I was like, right, with that pay rise, I'm going to be sensible with 50%
mm,
of it. And then 50% of that pay rise, I'm going to use for fun and social life and living my life in the way I want to live it. So I think it's really good to do that 1%, 5% better, one small change to improve. And it's really good looking at what went the
yeah,
previous month. If you've not got a budget, that's a really good place to start. Have a look at what a normal month looks like for you. But then
yeah,
as you improve your income, as you enter different stages of your life, what do you want that to look like? So like I said, when I got a recent pay rise, I said to myself, I'm a very sensible person. So I want at least some of it to be
mm,
sensible. But also I've become a bit obsessed with my budget at this point. I'm not doing loads, I'm not living a social life. So I'm going to use 50% of it for that, and I'll make sure that it's for that. So I think with each different life stage you go through, think about what you want to change a
yeah,
little bit. Get that budget in place, use last month to help you get that. But also think about, as you're perfecting it each month and changing things, think about what you want next month, how you want it to be
mm,
different. So that could, I mean, reducing takeaways is an easy
yeah,
one that everyone that eats a lot of takeaways should be
yeah,
doing. But also, if you say to yourself, okay, if I eat one less takeaway a month, that's actually enough money for me to join a nicer gym or to join the gym altogether.
mm,
So it's looking at what you're currently spending and going, I actually would enjoy my life more if I moved that money from there to
Yeah.
there. So it, like you say, it's making a plan for your
Yeah.
money. And I'm a big advocate of using money to create a life that you really
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And I think a budget can do that with a good
Yeah.
plan.
Honestly, that's what I tell people that a budget should do. A budget should actually help you live the kind of life that you want. Your budget, if you can remember, what do you think have changed? That you've mentioned the fact that you're trying to have fun now, but what else have changed?
So I think my mindset on money has changed massively. And I think originally I had a mindset very similar to my parents. Because they were in debt, they didn't want any money going anywhere other than the debt and to just get by. And so they would make sure that everything that needed to be covered was covered and then pay off the debt with the rest. So I think I had started my sort of working career and sort of independent
Yeah.
life thinking like that, and thinking I just need to get by and pay everything I need to pay, and then all the money that's left, I'll put that towards a house. And then when I bought my first property, I was still in that mindset, and I still was like, I just need to pay my bills, have enough money for food, and then I'll pay off my mortgage. And then I did that, and then the next thing I was like, okay, I can't keep living like that because now I don't have anything else to aim for. And it starts to get a bit silly, doesn't it? So I'd paid off the mortgage, and then I was like, what is the next
Yeah.
goal? So I was like, early
Yeah.
retirement. And then it was interesting because when I set that goal, I was like, but what would retirement look like for me? Because up until this point, I've just been trying to save my money so that I can reach the next. So I'm like approaching 27 by that point. And I'm starting to think more of like spending mindfully, but actually using money to have a good time and to bring me peace and comfort and convenience. And that's when my mindset just completely changed on it. And I still think I'm very sad. But back then, sort of 18 to 27, my budget was very much my bills, my food, my savings, my investments. And when I reached 27, I sort of went, I need to rethink this because my aim now is early retirement. But actually, what am I going to do in my retirement? Hopefully, I'm going to enjoy life. Why can't I start enjoying life now?
Yeah.
And that's the sort of cycle my brain did. So now there is a set part in my budget that is go and have some fun, see your friends, go on nice days out, plan for holidays. So I'm trying to live that early retirement sort of fun, but earlier on so that I can actually enjoy it. Because tomorrow's not a guarantee either. So I think that was the sort of thinking of, actually, I really need to start living now, which at 27 to have that realization is sort of slow.
I think the next question I want to ask would be, which you kind of touched on or you made reference to, right? If you look at yourself now, you have a very limited time. What would you think or what would you do that would be the most important?
So the initial thought that comes straight to my mind is working less. And that is interesting because now I work more hours than I've ever done. Which is funny that you've asked that question, really, and where I currently am in my mindset. So that's interesting to reflect on. But I think, initially work less, and I would do more things, more exciting things with my friends and family. So travel's always one of the things that sort of pops into your head, and it does for me as well. But I think traveling with your best friends that you've never traveled with, or your family, or like my brother, I've not done much traveling with my brother. I started traveling with him last year, and that was really cool. So I'd want to do more of that. And I think the other thing that pops into my mind is sort of legacy as well. What legacy do I want to leave? So I've got the blog, but also what impact do I want to have on the people around me and the people that are sort of listening to my story? So I would want to really think about the legacy I want to leave. And I've sort of the idea behind the blog initially. So it definitely was money saving, be money savvy. But the B part of it in Be Money Savvy, so the B is in the animal bit, and it's that the initial idea for that, and I've not played on it loads at the moment of recent, but the initial idea was also making really good choices with So thinking about the planet and sustainability and sort of the green
Mm.
investing
Okay.
sort of, and I think that is something that I would want to have an impact on the world, the small portion
Yeah.
of the world that read my website. But I think so. Yeah, it'd be something around legacy, something around new exciting experiences with the people that mean a lot to me, and working less so I could have more of those
Yeah.
experiences. And I think I'll add an extra little one is up until this point, I've done a lot of sort of sacrifice, gone into a food place and gone, I'd really like that, but I'm not going to have that because that's the most expensive. And I've got on a plane and been really uncomfortable and not sat near my friends because I didn't want to pay to reserve seat, or gone on a city break and just had a backpack because I didn't want to pay for extra luggage. So I'd try and integrate those little, oh no, I won't do that to
Yeah.
save money. Stop thinking
Yeah.
like that and think, actually, for my comfort and convenience and
Yeah.
enjoyment, this small cost would actually make that a lot better, and that's sort of
Yeah.
invaluable. So I'd try and live a bit more like that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. That's to be honest, that's really insightful. I'm sure you'll get around to doing. What are the biggest financial mistakes that you've made, and what have you learned from it?
Oh, another good question. So, truthfully, there's not loads that I
Exactly.
majorly regret. But there are a few little sort of niggles. So a recent one is saving more than investing. Is one of my sort of bigger financial regrets. And I
No.
got into investing. I know, like, so I started investing quite late, I would say, in terms of my money journey. Like, I've always been interested, done a lot of writing, and I was quite late to investing. And then
How late
actually,
are we talking about?
we're talking, this was also probably 2017. So in the 3 years I've been investing, I wish I'd started much sooner, which is such a common regret.
You started.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of them. And I mean, someone asked me today the difference between my investments and my save. So I found where I'd saved £10,000 and invested £10,000, so I could compare the two. And the difference is
Massive. Yeah.
it just makes that regret so much worse. I think the saving was the 10,000 that I'd saved was £500 in interest, and the 10,000 that I'd invested was like 2,400 over a year, which is just absolute madness. The difference in that is I try not to regret that too much, but that is a big. The majority of my investments are straight out of my paycheck on payday into Vanguard, doing the FTSE Global All Cap.
Okay.
And then with the stocks and shares ISA as well, so any returns tax free. But then I also have a small amount of different stocks with trading 200. But the majority of it is a monthly standing order to Vanguard in the FTSE Global All Cap, is where I have done my own research on what would work well for me, but always put the sort of premise of that is that you should always do your own research and see what's going to work for you.
Yeah. Another thing, I think Vanguard made the decision in December. I don't know if you saw that email.
Yeah, and this is the thing as well. It's always worth seeing what's going off and seeing where it's best moving money. I am a big fan of moving money to the better place, to better savings rates, to lower fees, things like that. I am constantly looking at that. In fact, I try and have like a big financial audit. I try and do it every 6 months, try and do it more often with like investments and saving. But at least every 6 months, I review everywhere that my money goes and if that's the best place for it. So even my bills, I will have a look at my energy provider and see if there's a better one. My broadband, I'll have a look, see if I can get a cheaper deal. And I'll do that every 6 months, which is keeping me on top of keeping everything as low as possible, but also maximizing my returns on things as well. So Vanguard is also on my list of things to review. Exactly. I did see that email.
Yeah, shocking to be honest. The next question would be for someone that's just starting that journey, right, to getting their finances in. What advice would you give them?
I think step one is, like we've said before, about creating a budget. Have a look at what you've been spending, put it into little categories, use a spreadsheet, an app, whatever works for you. Have a look at what you're currently spending and then create a budget for next month. Then I would say your next step is to review each thing that you spend money on. So people aren't going to like this one, but your rent and mortgage, can you do anything better to improve that situation? Could you downsize? Could you move in with friends temporarily? Have a look at each part of what you spend money on and see if you can get it any cheaper. And even if it's just a couple of pounds, it is a win. And especially if it's a monthly ongoing payment, a £1 win is a £12 win in a year, which compounds very quickly. You can do better things with that money. So look at each bill, your energy bill, your water bill, everything, your council tax. There are loads of like discount schemes. So go through each one. Don't overwhelm yourself with it. Do it one by one. Go through each one and see if there's something you can do to reduce them. And the same applies for things like takeaway, coffee on the go, anything that you spend money on, all your subscriptions. Are you using them? Can you get them cheaper? Do you really need them? Those are the sort of questions that I ask when I review my spending. And then another important point is to look ahead at what's coming up. So have you got birthdays coming up? Are you going on holiday? Do you have spending money saved for it? Do you have gift money saved for it? If you celebrate Christmas, have you saved up for that? To start to think about what's coming up in the next 6-12 months, and can you set some money aside? So if you do celebrate Christmas and you want a budget of £300, put away £50 a month, and you've got £300. But you've got to start that in January, so you've got to look ahead. And then I do think goal setting is really helpful. Even I know that everyone will say set really specific goals, even if it's not a specific goal and you just have retirement, new saving for kids. Like, I don't think it has to be super specific. I think you just need a goal, and then you need some specific steps to follow to reach that goal. So that could be setting up an automatic direct debit, moving money into a certain fund. One of my bank accounts, you can set up different funds and then move money into a savings account. So it is just thinking ahead and making it as easy as possible for yourself as well. Things like meal prepping. It's annoying at first when you start doing it, but it will make your week so much easier. You don't have to go and fetch food. You're going to save money. It's probably going to be healthy. There's all those little things, just planning ahead and trying to make things convenient for you will often save you money. So set up a direct debit to move money each month into different funds, to invest your money each month, which is what I do now. So I don't even think about investing. It just moves out of my paycheck each month. So I think those are really key. Look ahead, review your spending, review each aspect of your spending. Just make it as easy as possible by setting up everything to automate wherever you can. Would be my top tips for anyone just starting out.
Awesome. That's spot good. I really enjoyed talking with you, Emma. And I'm sure we will do this again.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. See you later.